Interesting Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court's wrestling with two stories. So citizenship. So there was really no definition in the United States prior to like 1960 or 1866. What is a citizen in the United States? And then they decided to ratify 1866. The 14th Amendment comes along. It gets ratified by all states by 1868. Basically say that, you're a citizen of the United States, except if you're black and you don't count. You're coming in from Africa. No, but everybody else is going to be a citizen. So now it has been in place, the 14th Amendment deciding that, well, these people are citizens, even if your parents are here illegally, if you're born in the United States, therefore you are beholden to, and you're here. So the story goes back to originally a young gentleman by the name of Wang. His parents were in the United States. They were Chinese. He left, went to China, and then came back. As he comes back during this time, there was the Chinese Exclusion Act. You weren't allowed to come in from China, nobody from China. So he comes back in again, and then the case goes before the jury or go before the judges to determine, does this guy have the right to come back? Because he is Chinese. Yes, but was he an American citizen living here, going to China, and then coming back? Do we have to exclude him like we're excluding everyone else from China? So that's the Wang case. That's what they're looking at. Justice Gray, who was the guy that came up with the China Exclusion Act, the one that was racist against Chinese, he was one of the original guys that came up with that idea. So then when the Justice Gray had to make the determination about who as a citizen, he kind of worked the angles a little bit and said, okay, we're going to let Wang in. So he's allowed in. He's going to be a citizen because he was here prior to. The judges will need to look at whether or not who is truly a citizen of the United States. This is unbelievably complicated because if these people did get citizenship, if this would overturn that, and what would you do with them? Where would they go? It's a mess. From early indications from some of the questions that are being asked, I can't imagine they would
overturn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, though, in the Wong case, his parents were illegal immigrants. And he was born of two Chinese illegal immigrant parents.
Yes, they had come into because prior to it, I don't think they were given citizenship.
Okay.
Right. And it was because of the exclusion of Chinese people, then him coming back in again. So he's stepping back into the United States. So they go, well, is he Chinese? Because we're excluding all Chinese. No, he's an American. Well, is he really? So that's where that all kind of got started. The other question that they have to decide, the other one they're looking at, can a judge in some district stop the executive branch from doing something? And that's a really interesting case, right? Because that seems like, well, wait a minute. This one, because they shop them. The Democrats shop these, and they go, like, where's the sympathetic judge? We'll do it here, we'll do it here. So then the judge does basically files to stop the action of the executive branch. Well, the judges are looking at this. Thomas said today, this had never happened. How did we ever get this far before all this started prior to 1960s? You have one judge who is representing 0.0001% of the U.S. population, stopping the president of the United States from doing something that affects every other part of the United States.
So this is essentially a federal judge like in Seattle.
A stay against, you can't do this, you can't deport these people, you can't do that, you can't do this, you have to stop this and stop that. It's a way, what was it, how many cases against, more than 100 and some cases that were brought against Trump by Ferguson, and then there's cases brought against him in other cities and other states that are filing, ways to stop the president. So the Supreme Court's going to be able to say, can that judge, like for instance with Garcia, so the judge that said you have to have that, you've got to go get that guy and bring him back from Venezuela. Well, does that judge have that power to tell the executive branch, which is then involved with a foreign government, to then is that judge allowed to be involved in foreign relations between Venezuela and the United States? Does that judge have that? El Salvador, does that judge have that power? So it looks like that particular one, the Supreme Court will, in certain cases, because the laws are so poorly written. You often hear from Roberts, if you did a better job writing these laws, we wouldn't have to get in there and try to fix these things. That's not their job. They only will have what's in front of them. And it looks like they might be able to at least control a little bit more of the number of stays that are going against the executive branch. All of this could be solved very easily if Donald Trump would stop signing executive orders. If Donald Trump would look down the road to Congress and say, hey, you're the elected officials. You're the ones that control the purse strings. You make the decisions on tariffs. Why don't you write some laws, and I'll go down there and I'll work with you, and I'll try to get you to write a law a certain way, and you can talk about deporting criminals, and you can be involved in that. But as long as we continue to have, and Trump's bad for it, Biden was bad, and then, I forget how many executive orders Reagan had, but the system is broken because you're having one person basically writing quote unquote laws or executive orders, and you've taken all of us, our elected officials, out of the process. That's not the way it's supposed to work. So that's why these things are getting challenged. Laws are written there. In Congress, checks are written out of Congress. Let those guys do it, and then let it go up to the Senate. But just to bypass all of this stuff, that's why it's so clunky. And then what happens is he signs the executive orders. If he loses in 3 years or 3.5 years, then the next guy comes in and just flips everything over the other way, just like they did with Biden, just like Biden did with Trump stuff. And then it flips back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and you're not having laws written. You're having executive orders passed.
And then you're electing presidents based on the pendulum swing.
But it's not a law. It's just an executive order. I want it to be this way. And where's Congress? Why are they going up there saying, hey, what about us? That's not his power.
But there are also a lot of the Republicans in Congress are scared that he's going to primary.
They don't want to say anything.
Yeah. They don't want to get primary.
Yes, exactly. They'll throw the money at him. But a mess. Write a law. Have lawmakers write laws. And then if the law is unconstitutional, he goes before the Supreme Court, then make the decision. That's unconstitutional. And it gets thrown out. But like this executive order, gambit, it's like having Teeny spin the wheel or something like that. It's just Teeny's just spinning the wheel where it stops. Oh, that's what we're going to do.